In a city of 8 million dreams, there was a young man named Kai who could build worlds in his mind. He could see them in perfect, breathtaking detail. A novel with characters so real they breathed. A business that solved a problem he deeply understood. A version of himself that was strong, disciplined, free. But here, in this room, the only evidence of those worlds was a cemetery of intentions. A graveyard of tabs left open for research, a gallery of elaborate plans sketched on napkins and notebooks, a collection of apps downloaded for productivity, each a silent monument to a beginning that never began. Kai was not lazy, he was exhausted. Exhausted by the sheer weight of the magnificent futures he carried on his back every single day. The gap between the man at the desk and the man in his visions was a canyon so wide and dark, it swallowed all his energy just to look across it. Every morning, he'd wake with a jolt of purpose. Today he would bridge the canyon. He'd sit down, crack his knuckles, and open the document titled novel. He'd stare at the blank page, and the sheer scale of the task, 80,000 words, complex plots, profound themes would rise before him, a sheer cliff face. His mind, a brilliant but primitive engine designed to conserve energy and avoid pain, would sound the alarm. This is too much, the reward is too far. Unlike a clever lawyer, it would present a compelling alternative. Let's just optimize the plan. Let's watch a documentary on writing. Let's set up the perfect playlist. And so, the day would pass, the canyon remained. The only thing built was a deeper layer of frustration and shame. He began to believe the story, that he was all vision, no grit. A dreamer, not a doer. The change did not come from a new vision. It came from the abandonment of vision altogether. It began on a Tuesday. In a state of pure surrender, Kai was so tired of failing that he decided to stop trying to succeed. He closed the document titled novel. He opened a new one and named it The Brickyard. The rules were insultingly simple. His only task for the day was not to write a chapter or even a page. It was to lay a single brick, to write one true sentence, just one. His first brick was pathetic. The coffee was cold. He looked at it. It was not literature. It was a fact. But it was a fact that did not exist in the world until he placed it there. It had weight. It was a start. The next day, he wrote another. She preferred the rain. Another brick. He was no longer writing a novel, a titanic, identity-level quest. He was a bricklayer. His job was simply to show up and place his daily brick with care. The anxiety of the canyon vanished, because he was no longer looking across it. He was only looking at the brick in his hand, and the spot where it must go next. This was the first law, the physics of the small. Momentum is not born from a massive first effort, but from the absolute completion of a trivial one. A finished tiny task creates a gravitational pull towards the next. Kai applied this law elsewhere. The gym bag that felt like a condemnation. He didn't force himself to go. He simply laid out his clothes the night before. He placed his shoes by the door, laces open, pointing outward. This was not preparation. It was a ritual of the threshold. He was removing the friction of decision, turning the prelude into a silent ceremony. By the time his thinking mind awoke, his body was already halfway through the ritual. The resistance had been architecturally bypassed. And for the tasks that still loomed like dragons, the tax forms, the garage clean-out, the difficult phone call, he instituted the 2-minute treaty. He would face the dragon, but only for 120 seconds. He would set a timer. For 2 minutes, he would sort papers, just 2 minutes. The timer was a sacred boundary, a promise that the discomfort was finite. And every time, something quiet and magical happened. The dragon shrank. It became just a pile of paper, a messy room, a conversation. The monster was not in the task, but in the infinite, fearful anticipation of it. Once the timer beeped, he was often already in motion, and would think, I'm here. I might as well continue. The treaty wasn't about work. It was about the unilateral disarmament of his own fear. Weeks turned into months. Kai stopped checking his progress against the grand vision. He kept his eyes on the bricks. The Brickyard document was no longer empty. It had paragraphs, then pages. The gym clothes became a habit, then a need. The cleared corner of the garage expanded, inch by inch, every Sunday under a 2-minute treaty that often stretched to 20. One evening, a friend visited and saw the stack of pages on his desk. "What's this?" the friend asked. "Just some bricks," Kai said. The friend read a page, then another. "Kai, this is a story." "You're writing a book." Kai looked at the stack, truly looked at it, for the first time in months. He had been so focused on the texture of each individual brick, the sentence about the light, the detail about a character's hands, that he had failed to see the wall he had built. It was solid. It was real. He had not crossed the canyon in a heroic leap. He had, brick by brick, built a bridge across it, without ever looking up at the far side. The revelation was this: laziness is not a character flaw. It is often the intelligent, if misguided, protest of a mind facing an impossible demand. You cannot shame yourself into action, but you can outsmart the resistance. You do not build the palace by staring at the blueprints and mourning its absence. You build it by falling in love with the weight of a single brick in your hand, and the simple, satisfying thud as it settles into mortar. So if you find yourself in a room of your own ghosts, surrounded by the blueprints of unlived lives, remember Kai. Close the grand plan. Open a blank page, name it the Brickyard, and lay your first brick. Not a chapter, a sentence. Not a revolution, a ritual. Not a marathon, a 2-minute treaty. The life you want is not a distant country to be reached. It is a structure to be assembled day by day, in the quiet factory of your present attention. The future will take care of itself. It has no choice. It is built, inevitably, from the bricks of your now.